Ladies and gentlemen, good day and welcome to the PNB Housing Finance Limited Q3 and 9 months FY 2021 earnings conference call. As a reminder, all participant lines will be in the listen-only mode, and there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions after the presentation concludes. Should you need assistance during the conference call, please signal an operator by pressing star then 0 on your touchtone phone. Please note that this conference is being recorded. I now hand the conference over to Ms. Deepika Gupta Padhi. Thank you, and over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Faizan. Good evening and welcome everyone. We are here to discuss PNB Housing Finance Q3 and 9 months financial year 2021 results. You must have seen our business and financial numbers in the presentation and the press release shared with the Indian stock exchanges and also available on our website. With me, we have a management team represented by Mr. Hardayal Prasad, Managing Director and CEO, Mr. Ajay Gupta, Executive Director and Chief Credit Officer, Mr. Kapish Jain, Chief Financial Officer, Mr. Anshul Bhargava, Chief People Officer, Mr. Nitan Desai, Chief Centralized Operation and Technology Officer, Mr. Sanjay Jain, Company Secretary and Head of Compliance, Mr. Rajan Suri, Business Head Retail, and Mr. Jatul Anand, Credit Head Retail. We will begin this call with the performance update by the Managing Director and CEO, followed by an interactive Q&A session. Please note, this call may contain forward-looking statements which exemplify our judgment and future expectations concerning the development of our business. These forward-looking statements involve risks and uncertainties that may cause actual developments and results to differ materially from our expectations. PNB Housing Finance undertakes no obligation to publicly revise any forward-looking statements to reflect future events or circumstances. A detailed disclaimer is on slide 34 of the investor presentation. With that, I will now hand over the call to Mr. Hardayal Prasad. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Deepika, and thank you, Faizan, for bringing all of us together. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our Quarter 3 and 9-month financial results for the financial year 2021. On behalf of the company, I extend a very warm welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining us in the call today, and I hope that all you and your families are safe and healthy and taking due precautions from COVID. Today, before I embark upon the numbers, the financial numbers that we will that you already have, I will start with our strategic priorities journey that we are embarking upon. In this regard, I invoke you to go through our investor presentation that is shared with the stock exchanges and are also uploaded on the company website, which will give clearly the journey that we are setting for ourselves. I now take this opportunity to take you through the new agenda in 3 major areas, which are strengthening the core, driving efficiency, and accelerating the growth, which are the fulcrum of this new agenda that we are setting for ourselves. The triumvirate consists of 7 focus areas that will help grow business, strengthen risk management, increase profits, and create value for all of you as well as the stakeholders. The company over the last few months have added members in its team either through internal movement or external hires and implemented long-term retention programs for performers. For capital conservation, we have deleveraged our balance sheet with gearing at 7.33 times. We have improved our CRAR to 20.06 as per Ind AS as on December 20 and are well above the regulatory capital requirements. Further on the capital raise, while the RBI decision is awaited by the PNB, the company approached its board to maintain optionality, and the board of the company has approved the addition of QIP mode in the capital raise plan in addition to rights and preferential. The company will prepare accordingly by ensuring that we have access to adequate capital within the next few months. PNB HFL, with the aid of advanced analytics and new age technologies, will further strengthen its underwriting and collection processes and efficiencies. Considering the challenges faced by the real estate sector, we have created a remedial management group to focus upon the corporate accounts. The group actively engages with the developers and works on various resolution plans, including allowing last mile funding, introducing new developers, inducting new developers, equity partners to complete projects, sale of additional collateral, ready inventory to generate liquidity for the projects. While the strengthening of the core is important for the long-term growth of an organization, driving efficiency is critical to get profitability. In the last few months, we have undertaken measures towards cost optimization that helped in reducing our OPEX. With continuous focus on cost control strategies, we expect to maintain our cost-to-income ratio in the range of 15 to 17% and improve profitability. COVID-19 has changed the way we look at technology, and this is expected to stay. Considering the new normal and the feedback from various stakeholders, the company has enhanced its focus on digitization. The company will introduce new age technologies, which are artificial intelligence, machine learning, and RPA to drive volume growth and efficiencies. In the last 9 months, we have introduced ACE, our online sales platform, and HOMI, our sales chatbot, to make customer buying journey personalized and engaging. We intend to integrate our applications for end-to-end journey, and we have many applications which are in islands, and these applications, once they are integrated, will significantly improve the overall way of the way we work. We feel that after strengthening the core and driving efficiency within the system, we will witness accelerated growth. The Indian economy is reviving from the impact of COVID-19 pandemic, and several positive steps by the government, which are higher income tax incentives for first-time buyers, reduction in stamp duty by certain state authorities, credit-linked subsidy schemes, allowing extension in project timelines and the RERA, etc., will fuel the revival of the real estate sector. With our robust and scalable hub-and-spoke model, we will continue to leverage our expertise in the mass housing and merchant category. The company over time has created its niche in merchant categories wherein we hold a competitive edge over other mortgage players. We have also decided to focus on retail lending, and therefore we are rebalancing our portfolio mix and push for accelerated growth in profitable sectors where opportunities are many in our view. The company plans to enhance its focus on the affordable housing segment, including high-yielding Unnati segment, which helps the yield and profits wherein we have built capabilities. The company has a board-approved policy on co-lending and is in advanced stage to enter co-lending arrangements with bank. To improve revenues, the company is exploring cross-sell and upsell opportunities. All of these will help in improving our revenue mix. The company has also embarked upon a transformational journey with global consulting firm to re-engineer end-to-end processes from sourcing to closure to increase efficiency, improve revenues, and to look at all the processes. The measures undertaken by the company under the transformational agenda will help bring efficiency in operations, enhance productivity, and augment growth to improve ROA and ROE. We feel that by strengthening our management team, which is pretty strong in terms of the mortgage lending, augmenting our capital base, reducing cost, improved risk management techniques, digitization, will help the company in the growth journey. With renewed focus on affordable housing, in particular Unnati, high-quality sourcing, we will become competitive and profitable. The company is gearing itself towards profit and growth. You all have already seen the numbers, financial numbers, and I would not like to really take you through those numbers. I'm sure that many of you would have now a lot of questions towards that, and I would welcome them. But a few things I would like to actually explain to you what we have, how the results have panned out. In the 9 months, the affordable housing segment has contributed 43% of the individual housing loan disbursement and is at 40% of individual housing loans AUM as on December 20. To give impetus, we have added a senior internal resource to focus on affordable housing and created a separate affordable housing vertical within the Chief Sales Officer. The lending in this segment also helps in opening of various low borrowing avenues for the company because there are some advantages when we go out for borrowing. As on December 20, 79% of the corporate book is good. 62% out of that book is at zero DPD. The company has seen recoveries in NPA book and resolution of 3 NPA accounts with nil haircut. The Swami Fund has also recognized the benefits of conservative underwriting by the company in its corporate book due to the net surplus in projects and have identified 12 projects where they intend to fund. And these were recognized in front of the Government of India secretaries when many of the top Indian banks and PNB Housing Finance was also present, and it was recognized that the book was one of the most attractive from the Swami point of view. We are reviewing the accounts and expect few accounts to be resolved through this route. As a prudent measure, we have made adequate provisions in the book and our total provision to total asset is at 3.47 and the stage 3 provision coverage ratio at 47% as on December 20. The life to date write-off by the company is 12 basis points and accumulated disbursements. The company has also done COVID-related modifications which are allowed under the Reserve Bank of India regulatory framework of approximately 800 crore, which is around 1.25% of the loan assets. The company till date has disbursed around 130 crores under the ECLGS scheme in retail segment. These are some of the major steps that the company has taken. It has also done significant amount of looking at its cost of borrowing and has brought down the cost of borrowing significantly in this quarter by repaying the high cost. Let me also share some of the financial highlights. Total revenue for the 9 months in financial year 21 is at 5,790 crore as compared to 6,358 crore for the 9 months of 20, registering a decline of 11%. The pre-provision operating profit for the 9 months of FY21 reduced by 6% to INR 1530 crore from rupees 1635 crore in FY20. Profit after tax for the period is at INR 803 crore as against INR 888 crore in the 9 months. The return on assets for 9 months FY 2021 is 1.4% and return on equity for 9 months is 12.8% on annualized basis on average gearing of 7.8 times. With this, I would like to open the floor for question answers. We have the whole management team sitting over there. I'd just like to remind that the management team has significant amount of mortgage experience in terms of what we are looking at and the way we are doing business. Thank you very much, and I am open to all question answers.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the question and answer session. Anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1 on their touchtone telephone. If you wish to remove yourself from the question queue, you may press star and 2. Participants are requested to use handsets while asking a question. I request to all the participants to restrict their questions to 2 per participant. If time permits, you may rejoin the question queue for follow-up questions. Ladies and gentlemen, we will wait for a moment while the question queue assembles. Reminder to the participants, anyone who wishes to ask a question may press star and 1. The first question is from the line of Piran Engineer from Motilal Oswal. Please go ahead.
Hi sir, congrats on the quarter. I just want to refer to slide 25 of your PPT, wherein you've given details on yields and cost of funds, etc. Now, I'm just trying to figure out how it is possible that our yield is higher, in this quarter than it was 2 or 3 quarters back, considering that none of the HFCs have reported stable or increasing yield, and also considering the fact that overall interest rates in the economy has gone down. What really has led to such an outcome?
Kapish. So, Piran, one is that the securitization that we did, Piran, in over the last couple of years, 18 and 19, the MCLR for these securitized books, since they've been done linked to MCLR, that has actually come down, and it has come down in the entire fiscal by around 61 basis points. That has also helped us in having higher earning coming into the portfolio. And given that this book is out of my that book is not part of my loan book, but the income comes to my P&L, has added to the incremental markup in my overall yield.
No, but Kapish, if I look at Nietzsche, you all have given the spread with and without securitization.
Adjusting for the same, Piran, it's around 10.43.
Correct, and 2 quarters back it was 10.23. So it's very counterintuitive that versus say 2 or 3 quarters back, our yields are actually higher. So have we jacked up our rates in say LAP and?
Yeah, if you remember, we did mention when we at the end of Q2 or Q1 as well, that in the corporate book, somewhere around middle of Q1, we had increased our rate of interest on the entire book ranging from 1 to 1.25. The full effect of that came subsequently, it will come in Q1, and that also added up in the yield going up.
Okay. So how should we think of just the yield number, say, over the next few quarters once the corporate book runs down? Shouldn't this reprice maybe sharply to like 8.5%?
Kiran, I would suggest that obviously in isolation one just can't look into yield. What is also important for us to see how do I further also melt down my cost of borrowing to reach to the desired spread that is important for the firm, and that's precisely how we looked into the entire portfolio. And we have given in the presentation as well that we intend to look for a spread of around 2.1 to 2.3 from the retail portfolio.
Okay. And my next question is, what is our stage 2 loans number?
What?
Stage 2 loan number.
Stage 2 loan number, we don't disclose stage 1, 2, 3 separately. We do it annually between retail, corporate, stage 1, 2, and 3. So we will continue with that.
Okay, but any qualitative sort of flavor that you can give us?
I mean,
the increase, would it be similar to the increase in pro forma GNPL? Just some idea of how that would have trended.
Yes. See, the thing is, RBI moratorium ended on 31st August, and thereafter things are working up. The traction is taking place, but it is too short a period for large corporates and even for retail to recover from the pandemic and get back to original cash flows. So this has impacted both retail as well as corporate. There has been instance of job loss. There has been instance of salary cut in retail, business loss. Cash flow impacted for self-employed retail customers, and so is your corporate accounts. Okay. So I would suggest wait for one more quarter, let things stabilize, and in March we will come with a detailed stage 1, 2, 3 breakup.
Okay, that sounds good. I'll get back into you. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Kunal Kodania from Mirae Asset. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi, good evening, sir. So, sir, my question was on the corporate book front. Like in the slide number 8, we have mentioned that around 62% of the book is zero DPD. So, if you could just provide some more color on the remaining book, how that 38% of the book is behaving right now?
So, Kunal, 79% book is clean and green book. It is a good book. Out of which 62% is overall book is with zero DPD. Obviously, when there is large loans given and there may be cash mismatch, temporary cash mismatch, etc. So there could be a delinquency, bucket 1, 2, 3, etc. So 8% of the book, the residual book I'm talking of, after 79%, 8% book we already know the risk is certified and it is sitting in an NPA.
Right.
The 13% residual book we are actively managing, monitoring, and some of these accounts have moved into performa NPA, and for rest resolutions and for performa also, the resolution activities are going on.
Okay. Okay, that was it from my side. Thanks.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Viral Shah from Credit Suisse. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I have two questions. So you have given that basically your pro forma NPAs are 4.47%. Could you break that down into what is the pro forma NPA in the retail segment and on the corporate segment?
See, as I mentioned, the retail and corporate breakup we gave annually. So we will continue with the same process, and we will, in March, we will segregate retail, corporate, stage 1, 2, 3, and come out openly performance and how the book is stacking up in various stages.
Yes, sir, but you actually give the retail and the corporate breakup for the stage 3 loans, which is your GNPA. My question is, you have given the pro forma GNPA on overall basis. If you could help give us the sub-segment of the pro forma GNPA, would help us to understand where the slippages and expected losses could be coming from.
As I mentioned, that pro forma GNPA is coming from all segments. Salaried, self-employed, HL, LAP, and retail, corporate both. So I would suggest that wait for 2-3 more months. In March, we will be giving a detailed deliberation on that. And out of 1180 crore, let me also tell you that we have been able to resolve in 24-25 days about 400 odd crore. So these cases have been rolled back, either one EMI or completely full amount has been collected, and there are some resolutions which is taking place by way of COVID moratorium and other resolutions which is taking place. So it is work in progress. I would suggest that if we wait for 2 more months, 3 more months, and with March numbers, we will be giving a dissected picture. I think more importantly, if you look at it, 62% of the book with nil DPD, I think that is very significant, and we have been able to work pretty hard after September, after the moratorium was over, working with the builders to see to it that actually everything is repaid. I think that's very, very significant. Now, all of us are aware that the industry is going through and the economy is once in a century kind of an event, and therefore the restructuring and the regulatory framework came in. So we have almost about 17% of the book where it has been invoked, but we have to complete the restructuring, which will be completed. This is all based on the cash flow, and everything is being taken into account straight away, and we are not doing anything other than that. It's not just that it is being transferred. When there was no construction activity happening, there was no revenues that were being generated by any of the builders, and therefore obviously an extension of time will be required. The Ministry of Housing also came out with a suo motu decision of requesting all the state governments and the RERA authorities to extend the period by 6 months. All this has resulted into actually there is a little modifications, and there is extension that are happening. In terms of the NPA and in terms of the stress book, we are really working 9% of our stress book other than the NPA is something that we are working very, very hard to see to it that either we resolve them or some of it if it flows into the NPA. They can go either way depending on the way we are working with Swami, we are working with on other fronts to ensure that these are gone. Within the NPA also, we are actively working to resolve some accounts. And we are hopeful that as things go as we have planned and as per the discussions that we are having with all other builders and other players over there, we should be in a position to actually improve a little bit. But overall, I'm not giving actually any of the guidance that where we will be. But I would like to actually reassure you that we are working pretty hard in terms of ensuring that the company has a solid handle over the corporate book.
Okay,
and
sir.
Thank you. Remedial management group helps tremendously in terms of structuring these kind of deals where you bring in new builders so that these can be taken over or it moves out of the book, it is downsold, and all those steps that are necessary to ensure that the book is improved significantly.
Okay, sir. Thank you for that. I had one question. Could you give us some indication of the extent of restructuring?
I think I did mention to you in my opening remarks on that about 800 crores. We said that COVID-related modifications are approximately 800 crores, which is 1.25% of the loan asset. And secondly, that we have also disbursed almost about 130 crores under the ECLGS, where we can give it up to 20%, and that goes up to 100 crores. To 500 crores of projects. There are a lot of things that we have done in terms of ensuring that these are taken care of.
Understood, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nidesh Jain from Investec. Please go ahead.
Thanks for the opportunity. Because actually on the capital raise, if you can indicate some tentative timelines and the possible structure of the capital raise that you have thought about.
On August 19th, the board had approved that the company will actually explore possibility of raising the capital through rights and preferential. This was before, and before that, the PNB had approached the Reserve Bank of India for permission to infuse equity into the company. Since they had actually asked that the equity infusion can take place either through rights issue or the preferential, we were awaiting permission from the Reserve Bank of India. The RBI decision is still awaited, while the PNB remains very, very hopeful that RBI approval in some form will come through. But in order to maintain optionality and ensure timely injection of capital, the board in its meeting today approved addition of QIP capital mode in the capital raise plan, in addition to rights and preferential, subject to PNB's holding remaining above 27%. 26 is the minimum, but we need a little cushion over there. So the company is actually preparing itself accordingly based on today's deliberation to make a final decision on the fundraising mode in the next few months. And we also feel that going forward with this capital through the QIP or any other securities and mode that we would like, we definitely will be able to continue to grow in the medium term. And we also await, as we are also very confident and we are hopeful that PNB would be able to get its approval. Once that approval comes, we still can issue the rights and the preferential. So I think we have started the journey in terms of the fundraise. So all the little bit of doubt that was there whether the company would be able to raise money, I think they've been said today. The board has very, very graciously allowed the company to go ahead with the fundraise. We will be putting in place in the next month. We will be taking a call very quickly in terms of how we are going to raise it and what amount that we will be raising.
Sure. Second thing is, if you can just give some color on the retail book on pro forma basis, in terms of GNPA, that would be very useful. But we have already made 3.5% of loan asset as provision, which looks which may be one of the highest among HFCs. But if we don't have any data on the asset quality, then it will be difficult for us to take a call whether those provisions are adequate or how much additional provisions we may require. If you can just give some color on either stage 2 retail GNPA, that would help us.
I can give some information which is basically a flavor of stage 2. What are the accounts which is flowing into stage 2? Predominantly accounts, and I'm talking only retail since you asked retail. Predominantly close to 90-95% of performa NPA of retail is coming from customers who have availed moratorium on 31st August 2020. Right. Now, we had a book of 18,500 crores which was there in moratorium, retail moratorium. Close to 4% has closed and close to 68% have paid all 4 EMIs. So there are residual accounts which either are in stage 2, a regular stage 1, bucket 1, 2 or 3, and some accounts may have flown into provisional NPA. As I mentioned, that in retail, the customers who were not delinquent as on 31st March, close to 361 odd crore, are the customers who have moved straight into performa NPA or NPA. Right? Performa NPA. And the reason was that, and these customers were non-delinquent as on 31st March. The key reason again is because of job loss, salary cuts, and cash flow, business loss. They were not able to make the payment, and these are temporary kind of situations. We are working on it. The higher buckets actually are directly correlated with the legal processes also. You are aware that when actually for a long time these things will continue, and therefore the higher buckets are just to pick up. There is no doubt about it. But in the absence of very clear direction from the Supreme Court, and the accounts continue to remain frozen, and there is very little support that you get on the ground from either the judiciary or from the administration, it becomes extremely difficult for us to go ahead and do the recovery. So those are some of the things. However, I still would like to tell you that the company is fully aware and it knows how to do the collection. It has maintained lower NPA continuously for a long time. The soft buckets are showing good traction. It's only the higher bucket, and we need to immediately put in place the moment we have clarity from the Reserve Bank of India in terms of what we want to do. These are accounts, some of these accounts are to second and third generation kind of, businessmen. These are accounts, the ones which are probably showing a little stress are in jewelry segment, automobile segment, garment sector segment, which were badly hurt by COVID. And it is not that it is huge. What we have done is that we have been still able to recover significant amount, as Ajay mentioned, that from 18,000, which was a residual book that was there on the morat book on 31st August, we have been able to recover amount either 1, 2, 3, 4. It's only the residual book where we have not been able to recover is a stress book that we are looking at it, and this is where the provisioning has also been done.
Sure, sir. Thank you, sir. That's it from me.
Second thing is that because of the lack of very clear direction from the judiciary, the normalization may take some time. It's not that anybody has a magic wand and they can very quickly. The normalization will take time, and the moment the SARFAESI and other things are open, we are back on track in terms of our ability to go and recover the money.
Mr. Jain, do you have any more questions?
Sure. No, I'm done. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Anuj Singla from Bank of America. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity, sir. So first question for Mr. Prasad. Sir, you mentioned that you have received 800 crores of COVID-related restructuring request. Is the number correct? And is that the total amount, or that is only in the retail book?
Mr. Singla,
Yeah.
sorry to interrupt you. Ladies and gentlemen, the line for the management is disconnected. Please hold while we reconnect them. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for patiently waiting. The line for the management is reconnected. Thank you, and over to you.
Yes, sir. Sir, this is Anuj from Bank of America. So one question on the restructuring request. You mentioned you have got a 800 crores to cumulative restructuring request under the COVID-related scheme. Sir, does it include the total retail plus corporate? Is that the correct understanding?
Yes, sir.
Okay, understood. And so secondly, you mentioned about 12 projects being recognized by Swami for last mile funding. So would you be able to share some more color? What is the total quantum of exposure we have to on these projects? And secondly, one of the key inhibition going for Swami Fund was always that these accounts will automatically become GNPA, and the IRR for Swami was very high, and they are last in first out. So have the modalities changed for us in terms of favorably considering the Swami Fund? So these are the questions.
Yeah. So on the Swami Fund, I'd like to answer that, what we were trying to show that, Swami recognizes that there is a lot of opportunity for them to, resolve a lot of assets of ours because there is, considerable net surplus available in them. So they have identified 12 assets wherein the developers have directly applied to them. And these are assets worth 1,200 crores from the stressed part of the book, basically the NPA book. What we are keen of, and you are right that they are last in and first out. So we, are very cautious in using these, this mechanism also. So we don't want to overdo it. There is only when there is merit, and we see that this is probably a last mile kind of a funding wherein the project gets delivered very quickly and we are back on track and we can recover our money quickly. Are we looking at this opportunity? If it's a nascent stage project, we are not interested. So we've identified around 3 assets worth 350 crores where we are actively engaging amongst these 12 projects to look at Swami, where we think that we can both quickly resolve those assets, though they may have identified more and they are more keen to work with us. But, considering what we are keen on, we are working as of now on 3 assets worth 350 crores. And this is mainly from the NPA performer NPA book. So the risk is already enumerated.
Understood. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Onkar Gugardare from Sri Consultancy. Please go ahead.
Yeah, can you please highlight the new strategy you have talked about? Like what kind of ROE you are targeting? You haven't given any specific about it. So what would be the growth you are targeting of loan book or say margins or ROE or ROA?
Like what we mentioned, the new strategy would be, of course, to build up our franchise in the retail segment and taking the opportunity of the affordable strength that we hold, where our book is already at around 41% at the AUM level. We want to leverage that further and focus a little more on the high-yielding Unnati segment that we have to get up the upliftment in our yield. We already mentioned in the presentation that we are looking that the retail book should be able to give us a spread of around 2.1 to 2.3. And cost to income, we said that we are currently at around sub 15. There would be some investments which might just come in on the technology front, on the development that MD talked about with regard to AI, ML, and RPA. But we want to segregate the cost of investments towards technology and keep the BAU completely tight to ensure that the cost to income on an aggregate basis remain in the range of 15 to 17. Therefore, with focus on the retail side, we are looking for ROA which should be in the range of around 1.6 to 1.7, and the growth will be a little muted for now. 1.4 to 1.6 on the ROA side. From a growth perspective, it would be looking for a muted growth of a single digit for FY22 with a larger focus on retail.
Okay, and for the next
growth, the growth will come. It's just a matter of time if we have all these things that I spoke about initially. And at some point of time, not today, we can go ahead on a little granular scale of what exactly we will do in terms of timelines, in terms of what will be the milestones under each focus area that we have enumerated. Obviously, the growth will come. We are rebalancing our portfolio. We are looking at areas which will provide higher yields. We are looking at affordable housing, as I mentioned to you earlier. Within the affordable housing, we feel that there is very big opportunity under the Unnati segment. Now, these are very, very important areas. And if you really look at the report that came by one of the rating agencies a few days back, it very clearly points to a higher single-digit growth that the industry and the mortgage industry will grow. We are also looking at it that if we have everything in place, with capital also, good liquidity position, control over of our book, we should be in a position to start on our journey of growth. I think that's more important for us because at the end of the day, it is a profit with growth. We will also grow and we will ensure that the portfolio is well managed, it is profitable, and it is balanced properly, so it doesn't undergo a vagaries of economic cycles.
So I would like to just clarify what I mentioned earlier. The ROA that we gave as a guidelines to the market in the month of July was around 1.4 to 1.6. We stick to that guidance. We are talking about a 1.4 ROA as of December 9 months as well. And for next year, with all the improvement that we talked about, with additional opportunity which should come in through the cross-sell, we are looking for an ROA which should be in the range of 1.6 to 1.8.
Okay. So the second question is on the trajectory of NPAs. How do you see trajectory of NPAs in upcoming quarters? Say now the revival has started taking place.
So obviously, the economy is opening up. The COVID vaccine is also launched. There are various segments which is basically coming to the normality, and this will give a positive impact on the portfolio performance for sure. If we look at retail, we are already seeing the uptake, and we just mentioned in the softer buckets we are close to pre-COVID level resolution. And the hard bucket is once the legal options are open, SARFAESI is open, we will see the resolutions coming from there as well. For corporate loans also, he mentioned that there is some green shoots which are visible. The demand side of the economy, we see that there is demand for housing from various segments of late. This may be an initial time, but affluent segment and the premium segment is also there is a demand coming in that particular segment also. With all these things, the resolution rate coming back to COVID, etc., the number should be moderate, but immediately 1 or 2 quarters there may be some forward flow, but we expect that in midterm it will normalize.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Vishnu Soni from Bharti AXA Life Insurance. Please go ahead.
Hello. Yeah, hi sir. Thanks for the opportunity. Sir, just I have two questions. One is on liquidity. So how much liquidity we have as in quarter end and 31st December?
As of 31st December, we had a liquidity in the range of 7,000 to 8,000 crores. But then we are working to bring it down. We have, as of now, we have brought it down by around 1,500 to 2,000 crores. And with the way the situation has been improving and the comfort is getting built in, we are bringing it down further. And we'll be getting us to a range where the liquidity is there for around 30 to 45 days in the near future, and then talking to around maybe a 30 to 45 days liquidity in the mid to long term.
And there is huge amount of effort to actually bring the. We definitely, because of COVID, disbursements were not there. The liquidity position had improved, or you would say we were slightly higher on the liquidity side. In the last 3 months itself, we have repaid all the high cost borrowings. We are continuously talking to our banks to ensure that the high cost is either replaced with the low cost or we will repay it. So at the end of the day, as Kapish mentioned, we will ensure that 45 to 60 days is a liquidity that we will maintain, and we will be clearing off all high cost borrowings that we have. I think in the long run, it is going to help the company significantly. Even in this quarter, if you look at the incremental borrowing, it is down significantly to, I think, 6.71 it is down to, which is, in our opinion, that given our rating and everything, we have been able to bring it down, and we will continue to strive to bring it down.
Okay. So this 7,000 to 8,000 crore includes both. This includes undrawn credit lines also?
Yeah, it does. Yes.
Okay, sir. One more thing, sir, just I wanted to ask, how much percentage of AUM we have the wholesale developer book as on 31st of December?
How much what?
The percentage of wholesale developer book.
How much? Corporate book. 17% of the AUM.
17%.
Yeah.
All right, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
This is despite the fact that, this is 17% is the book, but if you look at from the March, we have brought it down by 9%. By repaying, by either downselling it or by accelerated repayment and other things of almost about 1,000 crores. And we continue to work with a lot of builders to see to it that whatever is, in case, because our board very clear mandate that we are going to not get into the corporate book, corporate financing, construction financing. So these are some things that we will continue to see that they keep on coming down.
So any target you have for this corporate book in terms of
percentage? We have given a 1,500 target to bring it down. I think we have already done 1,000. So this quarter we will ensure that it is going forward. It is the retail which is going to be the engine of the growth, and retail the whole focus will be. If you really look at it in this quarter, 97% of our sourcing has been purely from the retail, and the retail will continue to be a major source of the growth, the revenue stream, the yields, and everything that we are going to work is going to come back by looking at the revenue stream, increasing the revenue stream as cross-sell, upsell, by increasing the yield in areas where there are opportunities, where they are better yielding, where the credit cost is low, the credit default premiums are low. I think everything we are going to look at it so that the retail becomes the engine of growth for this company.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Shubhranshu Mishra from Systematix. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. Thank you for the opportunity. My first question is, what's the quantum of liabilities coming up for repricing in the fourth quarter? And the incremental bank liabilities that we are sourcing, how are they priced at? Is it priced at T-bill or repo? And what is the premium on each of them? That's my first question.
None of them is at Treasury-bill.
Sorry, I missed your second part of the question. First part I just
said. Treasury-bills or repo, the borrowing, or it is only on the MCLR?
Okay, so we are gradually moving towards repo-linked borrowing. If you will notice, and you would have known that public sector banks have still not moved into a repo-linked lending for institutional. They are doing it for the home loan and the retail segment, but not for the corporate. So therefore, nobody is having that success. Some minor success is coming in the form of T-bills, and then from the private sector banks, yes, they are repo-linked borrowing which is coming in.
Right. State Bank of India started the repo linked to corporates, but then they have withdrawn it. So there is no the treasury related option is still there, and we are working with it. Only last week SBI was with us, and there are other private sector banks which are lending at repo linked, and we are aggressively interacting and bringing and talking to them to bring down the cost of borrowing.
Right. What is the premium on the repo that we are getting charged with?
Premium on repo, how much are they quoting? That depends on the rating and other things. But
premium on the repo ranges between 150 to 200 basis points.
Right, sir. Thank you for that, sir. And what is the FOIR that we have on the outstanding HL portfolio and the outstanding LAP portfolio, sir?
FOIR is fixed income to obligation ratio.
See, how we monitor is that we monitor the FOIRs which we give today for the incremental portfolio, because on the existing book, of course, it is not possible to monitor on the portfolio basis. FOIR at the time of sanction is sure something which we can look at. And just to give you an idea that post-COVID, once we reopened, so we realigned all our internal credit guidelines with respect to, keeping this unprecedented time and the lockdown stuff into mind, and so FOIR, etc. have been tightened. So giving you a number on portfolio will not be possible.
So how much was it on the incremental basis?
Sorry, incremental, it depends upon between salaried and self-employed. So just to give you an idea, around 50 to 60% of the salary income is what is allowed today.
Got it, sir. Sure. And sir, what has been the quantum of balance transfers, and what is our strategy to slow down the attrition, sir?
So what are you talking? You're talking about balance transfers in, or you're talking about balance transfers out? You're talking about attrition.
Yes, net balance transfers, which will be out in my sense.
Yeah, so we are seeing attrition because obviously there is attrition which is happening in our portfolio, but we are aggressively monitoring that, and we have given a lot of empowerment to the people on the ground to take decisions and retain the customers. So that is one that is happening, and secondly, we have again repriced the book which is there, and we have given the existing customers the benefit of whatever the repricing is that is happening on the liability side. So that is also happening, and we are passing on that benefit to the customers. Going forward also we will maintain this strategy, and we will be able to control this attrition which is happening in the book.
The reduction in the cost of borrowing has helped us tremendously in terms of aligning our interest rates. In the last quarter, there were 3 occasions when we brought down our lending rates, and now we stand almost at about anything from about 45 to about 60-65 basis point differential from the best in the market. This is a time when everybody has become very aggressive because there is no corporate lending that is taking place from any of the banks. I think with this last reduction in the interest rates on 24th, in some of the areas we are quite close to our pre-COVID level when we used to quote about 30 to about 45% differential, and we are almost over there in some of the buckets that we are lending. We feel that in case the interest rates will go up, I don't think that we will get affected, but because the interest rates are being quoted at repo linked rate by the bank, they will have to increase the interest rates, and it is going to help us significantly in getting back the zing and getting back the business with a differential of about say 20, 25, 35 basis points. I think that's what we are doing, but very importantly, I also want to bring your attention that our sourcing quality has improved significantly. We are concentrating very, very continuously by upgrading, improving, and we have tightened our underwriting standards. And despite the underwriting standards being tightened, we still see good growth that is coming in because of the overall market, the way it is shaping up. The logins have improved, the disbursements will follow, the sanctions have almost moved up. I think those are very good green shoots that one would look at it, and that is important from any of the company's perspective that whether it is still, despite the fact that it goes a little higher interest rate, whether it still attracts at a fantastic tag of almost 2.5 days for a salary and almost about 4 days for a self-employed. I think that sets us apart completely.
Sure, sir. And my last question is, how do we look at the cost of collections in FY21 and FY22, sir? What will be the absolute number?
So FY21, which is the next quarter, I think we will be maintaining the same trajectory to be conservative. The risk is not completely over. So the similar kind of trajectory, little moderate, maybe there, but in FY22, we expect the credit cost to come down because we have taken, the provisions, which is 3 point.
He's talking about cost of collection.
So I'm talking about the cost of collection, not the credit cost, sir. What is the cost of collection in absolute number for FY21, and what do you think it will be in FY22, sir?
We can come back on these numbers. We don't have right now.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much.
So there's a very important thing that has happened on the, somebody will actually take out those numbers and we'll give it to you. But the collection efficiency has gone up to almost about 95 to 96%, which is a pre-COVID number. I think that is very, very significant, with especially the lower, the soft bucket showing very good traction in terms of the recoveries that we are able to resolve. And the soft bucket, the resolution percentage are also completely pre-COVID levels.
Sure, sir. Thank you so much. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Have you been able to get the number?
If I got the question right, the recovery cost has been around 4.5 years for FY22.
No, I think that we will come back to you as a branch.
Sure, sir. Absolutely.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, in order to ensure that the management is able to address questions from all participants in the conference, please limit your questions to one per participant. Should you have a follow-up question, we would request you to rejoin the question queue. The next question is from the line of Nishant Shah from Macquarie. Please go ahead.
Hi, sir. Sorry, just one question and one follow-up from my side. So, in one of the replies to the earlier questions, you said you're considering only about 350 crores of being referred to the Swami Fund out of a total identified pool of 1,200 crores. Could you just elaborate on the plan again?
So what we referred is that, of all the projects that Swami had given a prelim approval on, we have, deciding to move ahead on 3 transactions of 350 crores for final sanctions and resolution through the Swami mode, is what we were mentioning.
Yeah, right. So why not going for the entire 100 was the question. Like, if these are all NPLs already, and if this fund is giving us last mile funding to go and complete them and get them sold, what's the reluctance here? Should we read that probably the saleability or the likelihood of completion here is going to be low, or how should we interpret this?
No, so it's not, it's not plug and play like that. What happens is basically, we look at several other resolution mechanisms, including joint development agreements, project takeovers, wherein we look at an outright solution there. So, if I'll give you an example that, if there is a project and a stronger developer comes in and takes over that project and resolves the account, that is a much cleaner and faster way of resolution than a Swami. And it ensures that going forward also I will face no issue, because that's a stronger developer, has the ability to quickly monetize the asset, and at the same time has a balance sheet to service my loan in a very, very smooth basis. So, Swami is one kind of a solution, but it has pitfalls because it puts the existing lender at an inferior position for a, probably a different duration of time, and Swami is ideal only for assets which are very, very near completion, so that they can just come in, make sure that the project gets completed and exit quickly. If they happen to disburse a large line for a project and they take, let's say, 2 years to exit out themselves, I will be in a position to, with a inferior position for next 2 years. So, that is something that I'm not looking at. We are looking at how to quickly and best way of, recover, coming out of the NPA position.
So Nishant, long and short is that we look at all options. This is what actually they have said that this is what they would like to look at it. But from the company's perspective, it is important that we ensure that we get the best out of that account. And therefore, we'll exercise all options and see that whether the options that we have in terms of JDA and anything else that we can actually work on, shifting it from one builder to another. If they are attractive options, there is no reason that I would do. So it is one of the resolution mechanisms, but there are other resolution mechanisms that we have, and we will continue to explore those resolution mechanisms because we have had some successes also in the other resolution mechanism, which gives us very, very clear and clean way of getting the money back. I think that's what is the ethos under which we are working on the Swami front, on the resolution front, and on the JDA. So everything is being looked at to ensure that the portfolio is much better as we go forward, despite whatever is happening on the real estate side.
Perfect. And just one quick follow-up. On slide 20, you've given a list of developers that are interested. Anything outside of this which are not yet NPL? Could you give any color on the geography, anything qualitatively just describing where you're seeing some stress?
Your voice you're not clear and audible, Nishant.
Sorry, let me repeat that. So on slide 20, you've given a list of developers which are NPL resolved and NPL which are still under progress. Anything apart from this, in your currently standard pool where you are still eyeing them closely, monitoring the stress, could you give any kind of color on those funds?
The material management group is continuously looking at the portfolio, anything that is come up, because you don't know today's account is good, it may actually suddenly there could be some issues, or if there is a stress and it suddenly becomes. So these are some of the large accounts that we have given to give a flavor of what is happening. We are looking at the complete book to ensure that the book becomes much more vibrant and much better in terms of the way we are looking at it. So there are accounts which are resolved. We wanted to send that message across that the remedial management group has been able to resolve the account. Simultaneously, there are resolutions that are underway. These are resolutions which probably will either fructify in this quarter or in the next quarter, hopefully. Something can go wrong also. But the way we are proceeding with them and the way we are engaging with not only these accounts, but with the other parties also which are coming on board to bring in a certain amount of either equity, capital, taking over JDAs and everything possible under the sun. So these are the ones that we showed it to you. There may be small accounts also which are being looked at. So keeping in view the space, the time and everything, we have given you these accounts.
Perfect, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Nischint Chawathe from Kotak Securities. Please go ahead.
Just two questions. One was on the assignment income of 35 crores. Just trying to check, this is the entire income that you booked on the assets that have been sold during the quarter?
Assignment income of 35 crores.
Yes.
Sure. And I think what you said is the benefit that you got because of decline in NCLR that goes to the interest income line item.
Yes, benefit is because of the NCLR write-down.
Credit widening in the securitized portfolio.
Sure. And just if you could give some color in terms of the NPLs of 4.47% in the pro forma numbers. Does this all pertain to the retail book, or has there been any increase on the developer side as well?
So as I mentioned, this comprises both retail and corporate. Within retail, it comprises of HL, a LAP, salaried segment. The COVID has impacted one and all. This pro forma NPA is also comprising of retail and corporate. I can, further mention that for corporate accounts, there are few accounts which slip, but all these accounts were pre-identified. Either we have placed them in SICR or they were in stage 2 earlier, adequately provided for. Retail increase, as I mentioned, is from the portfolio which was in moratorium. predominantly from there.
We're just trying to, kind of get a broad sense in terms of, how much has actually been the rise on the retail side. I guess, on the wholesale side or the developer side, we have discussed some very specific names in the past. So, assuming that we could take those steps, just trying to understand on a like-to-like basis how much is the increase.
Listen, my suggestion and request would be wait for another 2 months, 3 months time. Give us time for these things to settle down. As we speak, and I mentioned that, we are able to recover and cure close to 250 odd retail customers, which were in pro forma NPA. So things are shaping up. To draw any conclusion from this quarter number, I would say that it will be premature and very early.
Sure. Just one last question. What is your yield on retail home loans?
Yield on retail home loan, on a blended basis or retail home loan, you are saying?
So I think on a blended basis it's 10.62. I'm just trying to understand, how much is it on retail home loan?
On AUM basis it is 9.82.
On AUM basis it is 9.82. Retail home loan yield.
Well, on a weighted average, and incremental?
Yeah, it's on the weighted average.
Yeah, and incremental?
Incremental it is 9.09. So it is 9.43.
No, for the retail book.
Yeah, retail. Yeah, for the retail only he's saying 9.43. I am saying retail on AUM basis it is 9.82, and on incremental it is 9.43.
Okay, so 9.43 is the retail yield for the home loans that you sold during the quarter.
Not for the home loans. You said overall. So if you talk about only home loans, it is 9.09.
Okay, and incremental is?
That is incremental. 9.09 for the home loan. It is 9.09.
Perfect. Okay, got it. Perfect. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Anuj Sharma, individual investor. Please go ahead.
Hi sir, my question is that when you talked about the 800 crores of restructuring related to the COVID, so is there any color? Can you tell us if how much is pertain to retail and how much is pertains to corporate side?
So corporate, we have done restructuring in 2 accounts, which is about 146 odd crores, and retail is close to 661 odd crores.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. So another question would be, when we talk about the liquidity, the 7,000 to 8,000 crores that we have, it includes the undrawn line. So how much will it be the cash and cash equivalents of the investment, and how much of it will be the undrawn line?
See, the undrawn lines, including the ODs and all that I hold, would be in the range of around 1,500 to 1,800 crore, and the rest would be liquidity.
Okay, sure, sir. And my another question is, can you tell us like what would be the write-off figures that we have done during the 9 months?
12 bits.
During the 9 months. No many correct. 34 crores. Yeah, so the write-off for the first 9 months is 34 crores.
Okay, sir. So last question would be, can you tell us like how much incremental borrowing that you have raised during these 9 months, and like the sources of it?
So the incremental borrowing that we raised in the first 9 months, if I have to say from pure, not talking about the churn that comes in the short-term borrowing, but purely on a long-term borrowing perspective, we would have churned around 16,000 crore of our borrowings, and the incremental borrowing has come at a blended cost for at around 6.91 for the first 9 months. And like what MD articulated earlier, for the quarter it is 6.71. So incremental borrowing every quarter is coming down.
Okay. So one more thing, like the last quarter we showed a income of 105 crore because of the security, because of the reduction in the buying banks MCLR. And this what would be the number this quarter for in accordance to that?
Okay. So this quarter, because of MCLR movement, this amount is around 50 crore.
So when we say like,
yes.
Sir, when we say the 50 crore because of the decrease in the bank's MCLR, now when we say it's a quarterly income and if we brought it down to the yearly income, suppose yearly, it will be like roughly around 200 crore, and on a securitization pool of around 120 odd billion, so it comes amount to around 2.5% of change in the MCLR. So is it entirely because of that? Is my calculation correct, or is there something that I'm missing in it?
No. So if as you know, under Ind AS, we have to do we need to reset the spread and the profits from the securitizing portfolio. So as on 31st of December, securitized portfolio I have, and with the expansion in the spread, I would do a benefit because of that for the future income that I'm going to get. And at a present value, that number comes to around 50 crores for the quarter.
Sure. Got it, sir. Thank you so much.
But the net effect of that, because there's unwinding negative impact which comes because of runoff as well, is around 32 crores for the quarter as an absolute amount.
Okay. So we'll say the income is the 32 crores is the negative impact of them.
Yes.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Simranjit Singh Bhatia from SMC. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for giving me the opportunity. Sir, I want to understand that you have said that you are going to raise the capital and you are waiting from the RBI permission. What is the motive behind raising the capital going forward? Is it for for the provisioning purposes or for the growth purposes? Can you throw some light on that? And secondly, I was seeing your net interest margins. You have reported 3.18% from 3.50% from QOQ, and which I believe that can you give some guidance on that? And what's the reason for this low NIM percentage in this quarter when all other financial players are at least giving very strong sort of NIM percentage even in Q3 also, and what is the percentage of your of the total corporate book as a percentage of your total loan, means out of 100 rupees, means out of 100%, what is the percentage of the corporate book you have right now at this present time?
I think we gave you earlier 17% is the book. Coming back to the raising of capital, it's obviously for the growth. It's very, very important that the growth has to be there. We will require capital. It also helps us significantly in terms of improving our rating, which is very, very critical. And the moment the rating and the other thing goes up, we should be in a position to bring down the borrowing cost. Now, all these things are related to one of the most important things for the company to raise the capital. Now, these are the most significant things which is important for us as a company. When it actually really starts growing it has the required capital, it has the required wherewithal to withstand, and especially when we are going to rebalance the portfolio, the growth opportunities that are there in terms of the affordable housing, and the changes that the various governments are bringing in terms of the affordable housing. One of the state government has increased the overall area for development from 10 acres to 30 acres. They have made from 4% to 8% is what you can actually build on the commercial side. The car parking now is being allowed. This gives a huge opportunity to a lot of people to start owning these kind of homes, and therefore these growth opportunities will come up. We have the underwriting capabilities. We know the business. We have a sound book which we have built in the last few years. Now these are very, very ominous signs for us to have the right capital over there to ensure that the company grows very, very profitably. Profit will remain the most important thing. That one. I would like to bring it to attention continuously, that we will bring in efficiency of operations, we will reduce costs, we will increase the revenue stream, we will rebalance the portfolio, and we'll see to it that actually the company is quite robust in terms of the way it is performing.
Great.
Another question on the NIM.
Yes. NIM percentage movement.
Yeah. So the NIM that you see in the presentation on slide 25, and you talk about 3.5 to moving to 3.18, you will notice that we also talk about spread with and excluding securitization. So the last quarter was an aberration where we got upfronting income because of MCLR movement, which all came in the second quarter, and therefore we showed spread with and without securitization. If you rework that number, the NIM for quarter 2 is actually 2.96, and the NIM for this quarter is 3.01. So, and historically, if you notice, Q3 last year it was at 2.98. So our NIMs have been in the range of around 3%, and we see this potentially moving up by additional effort that we are putting in with regard to cross-sell and upsell and other elements of fees. But the NIM is fairly stable at around 3% range.
What was the question?
The NIM is 3.1 is also 3.52 last.
Okay. Great. Sir, and my last question is, can you tell me what is the percentage of the developer's loan you have in the portfolio at this present time in the real estate side?
Corporate, how much is developer?
Also developer.
We'll give it to you. 17 is overall the corporate book. This is something that we have it, but right now it's not there with me. I'll give it to you.
Done. Thank you, sir. Thank you for answering the questions, and all the best. Thank you.
It's all developers loan actually.
Yeah, it is all developer loan.
It is either construction finance or it is corporate term loan. Basically, it is nothing but that. But I think something specific, Kaladi or something, we can have a look at that. If there is any portfolio that's sitting over there which is not developers. It's all developers.
We don't do anything apart from developers.
There's one more item.
Thank you. The next question is from the line of Radhika Lohia from Mirae Asset. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. So few questions from my end. First, on the follow-up question. So you had said that 18,000 crore of moratorium which was there in the retail side. So 68% had paid the EMI. So the remaining 6,000 crore which you're looking at is in stage 1, 2 and 3. Is that what you had mentioned?
No, I also mentioned 3.75 has pre-closed. So the residual accounts are accounts where either 1 EMI, 2 EMI, and 3 EMI are overdue, which is close to 4,400 odd crores.
So 4,400 is the residual which you're looking at. Might be in stage 1, 2 and 3, right?
That has, yeah. Stage 1 and 2 because we can't classify these accounts into stage 3.
Right. It do. Right. Yeah, right.
What I said, bucket 1, 2 or 3.
Okay, got it. And also on the loan book side, so there has been a degrowth of like 4% on a QoQ basis, and we're seeing an interest income down by 10%. So could you please explain on this?
See, as we were talking about, the loan book has degrown majorly because there has been some attrition in the book, though, and we are growing very, very cautiously, and that's what route that we have taken as of now. But going forward, yes, when we are talking about accelerating the growth, this piece will be covered, and we will grow very smartly from here. Yes, currently the book is degrown, but like I said, we'll grow very smartly from there.
We actually clarified to your second part of your question where the interest income is down by around 9% on a sequential quarter-on-quarter. So last quarter, as we mentioned, we had the impact of the entire MCLR movement which happened across banks for our securitization portfolio, which has come as the upfronting of income for the additional spread that came in for the remaining portfolio till its maturity, because of which the yield was added in, and therefore the yield was showing at 11.30 in our presentation, as you noticed on page number 25. So that's one reason why the yield show a sharp increase and the interest income show a sharp increase between quarter 3 and quarter 2. Adjusted for that, our yields are fairly smart, both for quarter 2 and quarter 3, and there's not been any downward movement.
Okay, sir. And just on the last question, so what is the amount of payment that you are expecting 1 year from now? Like a little light on your ALM profile. Yeah.
Yeah. So the repayment that we expect from now, so on the deposit side, it's around 18,000 crore. On the deposit side, it's around 18,000 crore that is there coming for repayment. Sorry, not deposit, including all borrowing, it's around 18,000 crore. And then there's around the ECB payment which is also coming in, of around 4,000 crore.
Okay, right. Okay. That's it from my end. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we will take the last question from the line of Viral Shah from Credit Suisse. Please go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thank you, sir. Just one last question. How much have you reduced your benchmark rates over the course of last 6 to 9 months, both on the retail within home loans and LAP?
65 bits. We have reduced our rates by 65 bits in over last 6 months or over last 9 months. So that's what we have done.
This would be the benchmark reduction, right?
Yeah, 65 bits. New acquisition I'm talking about.
Okay, and have we reduced them anytime in the last quarter?
Yes, in the last quarter also we have reduced the new acquisition rate that we have reduced by almost 45 bits.
But so this would be new acquisitions. Have we reduced the benchmark to which all the existing loans are benchmarked to?
So that we have not done in last quarter. But yes, in last 9 months we have again reduced by almost some 35 bits in 9 months.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. As there are no further questions from the participants, I now hand the conference over to Ms. Deepika Gupta Padhi for closing comments.
Thank you everyone for joining us on the call. If you have any questions unanswered, please feel free to get in touch with Investor Relations. The transcript of this call will be uploaded on our website, that is www.pnbhousing.com. Thank you and good evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of PNB Housing Finance Limited, that concludes this conference. Thank you for joining us, and you may now disconnect your lines.